My chair to go down some. Well, I guess that's not in the cards, is it? All right. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's kind of tight in here, Bud. I've got Bud with Side Hustle Survivalist.
Yep.
All right. And I've got TD from the Texas board, special guest on the show at the Anvil. We're going to talk about probably the biggest story that's hit in a long time.
Yeah.
The banking system is going down. I've got some stuff from you guys that I put out a community post earlier and asked you if you had any banking issues you wanted us to cover. Got a little bit of that. We're going to cover some solutions. But real quick, for those of you that missed yesterday's, and TD's a little more, I don't know, you're better at the banking talk than I am for sure. We're going to get into the weeds of this, but this is what I want to read you. A growing number report unrealized loss that threatened capital at third quarter end. This is from the Federal Reserve. Listen real close. 722 banks reported unrealized losses exceeding 50%, up to and more than 50% of capital. That means they don't have your money. That means they're insolvent. So we're going to talk about some of the things they're saying, and it's hard to understand these things, and I think they do that on purpose.
Yeah, maybe.
But thank you for coming on the show, guys.
Thanks for having us.
$5. $5.
I guess Side Hustles. He's a scammer. Don't go over there.
He's always hustling.
So what is going on with our banking system? I mean, it's getting nutty.
Well, you'll probably link this down below, but
Absolutely.
This is a Federal Reserve news report that they put out on February 14th. Impact of rising rates on certain banks and supervisory approach. So Chris mentioned that they warned that 722 banks were being heavily looked at and investigated. And now this is obviously contradictory to everything that Jerome Powell has been saying on television for the past 3 months. Like even recently, like within the last couple of weeks, he says everything looks great, all the numbers are good, right? But yet they released this in black and white. As interest rates rose during 2022, the market value of bank securities significantly declined, creating unrealized losses. Okay, so there was this correlation, and this has to do with T-bills and liquidity, right? And as interest rates rise, those values drop, so they're relatively liquid, but when they go to liquidate them, if they're down, they actually take that loss. So this is where some of these unrealized losses are coming from. Banks with large unrealized losses face significant safety and soundness risk. So these are unrealized losses because liquidations haven't occurred, right? But what forces the liquidations? Hey, we want some money. Like, hey, we want $1,000 or we want $10,000 or we want whatever, Securities have traditionally been used for liquidity purposes. Today, the level of unrealized losses are causing some banks to face tough choices. Now, what's most interesting about this report is Silicon Valley Bank is mentioned on February 14th in this report. SVB, the 18th largest U.S. bank organization, has significant interest rate risk. So they had already known that it was heavily exposed in T-bills, and if there was ever any kind of slight run or liquidation event, that they would be in deep doo-doo. And that's why they're mentioned here. SVB's weakness in market risk management and high IRR exposure has resulted in sensitivity to market risk component, which downgraded them to fair in February. This report is literally saying the opposite of everything we heard on TV. That's why what Chris was saying, this is so important, because in February they talked about 722 banks that are in high risk. We're watching banks topple, right? We're watching the big six come in and like gobble them up for literally $1.
Yeah.
They're buying them. When did you ever get the chance to buy a bank for $1, like a
No.
multi-billion-dollar bank? We don't.
Never. No, but it's a big club and we ain't in it.
I passed.
Yeah, you had. Bud had the opportunity.
I was fishing at it.
So, getting into the weeds of this, like liquidity concerns. Banks with higher level of unrealized losses are funding loan growth and deposit withdrawal. More high liquidity assets and borrowings. It's hard for me to understand all this jargon.
Yeah.
Is that on purpose, you figure?
It's by design. It's with all financial vehicles. There's always acronyms involved. There's a lot of bureaucracy. There's a lot. They take relatively non-complex terms. They incredibly complicate it, and then it all becomes synthetic derivatives and a derivative of a derivative. And that's where it really gets murky, because, wait a minute, you just said a derivative of derivative. Well, if a derivative is nothing, then a derivative of derivative is less than nothing. So that's why it's wait a minute, what are you talking about? And that's where the confusion.
So you mean they could have summed it up like, hey guys, 722 banks don't have more than half of what they're supposed to have. But this is okay because we're going to push everybody into 3 to 6 banks, and that's how we're going to deploy our universal basic income.
Yep.
That's how we're going to push people into the Fed coin,
Yep.
Fed now,
Unicoin,
and we're going to use
CBDC.
Unicoin. That's
Yep.
how the central planners are going to consolidate
Yep.
into bigger banks that we have to use.
Yep.
Now, we'll elaborate on that, but they could make that really simple and put it in about 2 sentences.
So question, does this, the non-liquidity of these banks and what you're talking about pushing to the other banks, is everybody trying to draw their money out of the banks? Is that accelerating this whole problem? Or is it causing a different problem?
That's supposedly what creates the problem. When you say, hey, I want all my cash, I want to take it out, and they say, oh, well, you're going to have to wait because we don't have it. And then they're going to start liquidating assets, and then either the liquidations will cover the request of withdrawal, or there's not enough money there, and that's when they become insolvent. And that's when they need, JP Morgan or somebody to bail them out.
There's another thing going on with these money market funds. And I was talking to David Morgan about this. That's another pressure on these banks.
Mm-hmm.
Money is going where it's treated best, and so it's going out of the bank into money market funds.
Right.
So there's a lot of pressure on these banks, and they knew this was going to happen when they raised interest rates, that this was going to all come out.
And in 2008, I had a very large client with a very large money market account. He had about $650,000 in it, and it was just an interest-paying money market account. It was a check-writing money market account, and they froze it, $650,000. Needless to say, this guy was upset. And they said, well, it was exposed to Lehman Brother paper, which is just more of this super liquid paper, and they froze his cash for 8 months. Wow. 650, and needless to say, when they finally unfroze it, obviously he moved all his accounts, and he was incredibly ticked off. I mean, he had $600,000 in a check writing account, and he couldn't do anything with it. It was frozen.
Okay, so we've talked about how the people making a run on the banks are going to get their money is adding to this problem. They're raising the interest rates. We didn't even hit before of how the whole BRICS deal is affecting this also because of our N2 supply, money supply. Is that also playing into this, or is that a whole separate on the financial side?
I think that's a whole separate, different thing.
I would agree.
Yeah.
It seemed like it's a whole different deal.
Yeah,
That's part of the de-dollarization is what it seems like. But actually it does play into it. Because this is going to result in more money printing.
soft market. Yeah.
This is going to result in more currency devaluation, and that's going to push people to the other countries into their
They're wanting to get rid of them.
Yeah, a currency that's actually backed by something,
Yeah.
which would be commodities, oil, gold, who knows. Yeah. China just bought 8.02 tons, no, maybe it was 8 or 9 tons in April alone. I just did the story yesterday. I mean, these countries are moving into harder assets, and they're globbing together, dealing us out, because the petrodollar's done, guys.
Yeah,
They're already
petrodollar's
doing deals
dead.
out
Yep.
of it. Okay, so I got an email from Jimmy Warhorse. And guys, this is a cool cat. He made a money machine, literally. He took some parts from, I think, a slot machine and put some other parts together, and he made a contraption that you dump dimes and quarters in, and it would separate them, the silver from the fiat. Incredible. I thought it was ingenious, and he did it for a while. He'd go get thousands of dollars worth of change and dump it through his machine, and he would separate them out and take the money back to the bank. I think the banks finally got tired of messing with it. But it's really cool. Same guy,
Cool.
and he's got a story here that I think you're going to want to hear. Said about 2 years ago, I'm going to just kind of abbreviate here. 2 years ago, I was watching the banking system. I knew what was about to happen. He'd been a factory worker for 40 years, paid firefighter for 38 years. 2 online businesses. They wanted to take some risk off the table and get their money out of the bank. Because some people can see these things way far out. Economic Ninja's one of them. He's been on this banking thing for 2 years.
Yep.
Actually talking about it and knowing about it before then. But now in 2023, Jimmy Warhorse's father's 90 years old, wants to move his money out of the bank. 4 different banks, all right? This isn't a small amount of money, $1.5 million, okay? He's doing this because he's a Korean War vet. He's lost 98% of his hearing, and he's mostly blind. One bank insisted that his dad come up there and do it himself. Well, he already had power of attorney for 8 years. They still wouldn't accept it. I don't understand that.
Yeah, I don't
that
understand
seems,
that.
I don't doubt it. Don't get me wrong. So then they said, okay, well, if you can't bring him up here, bring your mom up here. So,
She's 92.
yeah, right. Anyway, they ended up refusing. I'm full trustee on all accounts. I told the bank I'll bring my dad, but I can't sign because he can't see. Anyway, his mom went up there, and 1.3 is what they ended up with. After a long time, they now have to wait 2 more weeks. He's scared the feds will enact a law that will limit what a person can withdraw per month. I think you're absolutely right, Jimmy, that we are going to see withdrawal limitations in our near future. You agree?
Well, it happened in Greece, so we know, when there's significant runs, we watched, the Greece experiment was, they test trial these kind of things when they decide to take down and reorganize and shuffle the deck. And so withdrawal limitations not only will be commonplace, but they're going to be of necessity, because we've friends of ours, they were like, we went to cash a $300 check, and they were like, oh, you're going to have to come back to get to $300. Like, most people make that in a couple hours anymore. So
You're hearing story after story of people who can't get limited by how much money they can get out of the bank. Myself, I went to my bank and I wanted to get $40,000 out of there, which they didn't limit me to the amount I could take, but they said, oh, we don't have the money. We can put your order in, come back in 8 to 10 days, and we'll have it here for
exactly.
you. So it's like, okay.
And one of the subscribers, I'm going to call you community members because that's exactly what you are. Her name was Patty. It's right here. Patty Williams says, my family in Texas can't get money out of an ATM. They report they are being told there's a cash shortage. Can't get a $100 bill changed. And several of you said, quit doing direct deposit. Get out of the system a little bit. More people say, don't worry about trying to get large sums of money all out at once. I just have made it a habit to pick up a little extra on a regular basis. A lot of people are practicing that. So, get a little out as we go. We're kind of approaching a time where you need to maybe get a little more out done a little, in my opinion. And we're also approaching a time where we're not going to be able to talk about this on the YT because we're going to be demonized as the people that started the bank run.
They're going to, exactly.
Instead of just reporting the actual news that's going to change people's lives.
You're right.
This isn't every day. To put this in perspective, I was talking to the Economic Ninja earlier, and he said back in 2008, after 2008, we lost like 440 banks or something like that. It was like, maybe it was 110 a month, I believe it was. We've already passed that. We're almost double what happened in 2008. This is massive, massive news. I do not want you to miss it. I will put that report he was just reading. This is a Federal Reserve warning that we were not allowed to have until now.
Right.
And I want everybody to look at it. It's not that hard of a read.
And it's redacted and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's redacted, restricted. So check it out. It'll be in the comments. But there's a lot of banking issues going on, and we'll talk about some solutions in a minute. But what do you everybody pretty much knows on my channel what I feel like is going to happen. This is the big push towards the CBDC. This is how they're going to initiate their long-term plan. They've been doing this for a decade, maybe even 2 decades, trying to get this one world government, one currency, the freaking unicoins out, guys. I mean, this is legit. I've got an app on my phone where you can go through. I'll actually put it in the description as well. M&J sent me that. This is here. This is not some kind of fear-mongering. This is no hyperbole. This is exactly what it is. And we're just trying to figure out what to do, how to be where the puck is going.
Yeah.
So what do you think? Is this the big push to the one world money system?
We see these things roll out, right? There's a certain amount of adjustment, there's a certain amount of resistance, and the social engineers lick their finger and hold it up to the digital win, and then they decide, well, we're going to either go full implementation and push forward, we'll take 2 steps back. It's just like communism. 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and you creep towards the end game. Will the hat drop? Will this be it very well might not be, but it is definitely going to be 2 steps closer to the end of the goal line of where they want us to go. That's always, everybody always wants like the playbook or the solution or what's the thing, like what should I do with all my money, or there are so many variables. Everybody's life is different. Everybody's lifestyle is different. Everybody's goals are different. And so that's why we want to put the information out, right? We all work so hard to, one, take advantage of what's left of the free enterprise system, right? I am very thankful to the Lord that I was born here and that I've been able to take full advantage by hard work and sweat and working hard, and by the grace of God, take advantage of all the opportunities I've been given. I was born in a very blue collar, almost no collar, dirty collar, home in a very poor area, and basically a trailer park, for lack of a better term. It wasn't quite a trailer park. I didn't live in a trailer, but there was a bunch of trailers around.
Live behind the trailer.
I'm thankful
They're
for
called mobile homes.
Yeah, mobile homes.
Yeah.
Mobile. But I'm thankful, and I want to take advantage of all the opportunities. But we put the information out so that you are aware of financially what is happening, so that you can act accordingly, and that you can act in accordance with what best aligns with your values, your goals, your long-term strategies. And more people should honestly care. That's what me and you were mentioning, Chris, when he said 722 banks, and like nobody's talking about it. They're more concerned with, Steven Crowder getting divorced from his wife or whatever. And meanwhile, our entire fiscal infrastructure is collapsing,
We, all of us, have got to experience some sort of the American dream, right?
Yeah.
You grew up in a mobile home park. Wasn't a park, it was something probably a little closer to the poverty line than you are now.
Sure, a little bit.
I grew up on a farm. We scratched dirt all our life, and I remember the 80s going through that, having operating loans at 21%, going through bankruptcy.
Wow.
And we actually had to have family come in. Family all came together. We were able to save the farm and ranch at that time. But that took clear up until the 2000s before that could all be
Cleared.
Cleared
Yeah.
and everything. And I watched, my dad, a Korean War vet too, worked 28 years for Champlin Refinery in Enid, Oklahoma. 28 years, he was the head foreman there. They went bankrupt. All his his pension went completely away. He had that all built up for retirement, and he would come home and work 6 hours. He would work 12 on and 12 off at the refinery, and he'd come home and work 6 hours in the field. He slept for 4 hours a day, and he did that for 28 years.
Wow.
And man, so yeah, it's you learn work ethic. One of the things back on what TD was saying a while ago about everybody's deal is different. In the military, we call that situational awareness. So each individual has to figure out their own situational awareness and depend on which way you want to go. When we get into kind of some of the solutions here, Chris will go over, percentages and stuff like that. So that's, back on, you asked on the, do you think you're coming towards the end times? So I agree with what TD was saying. I actually think that there could be two different routes we could take towards our money situation. One is kind of talking what you're talking about. If the euro and the Western nations are able to overcome and get our whole system, CBDC system and everything set in with IMF and all that. The other situation I could see is that if the whole BRICS nations, with all their 142 countries that they have coming together, they're surpassing our GDP, could become the next reserve currency, and then we have to follow what their rules are. And or we could have a dual reserve currency in the world.
It's called a multipolar world.
Multipolar world. So there's so many, like you were saying, so many different variables.
Crazy.
But what are things that we can do now to prepare for that, and not just we're talking financial stuff, and we'll go into some other stuff a little bit later. But yeah, what are some things that we can do now?
Well, the lady that couldn't get her money out of the bank, that's kind of case in point. Have money out of the bank.
Yeah.
You need to get in front of this. I'm not saying pull all your money out of the bank. I'm just saying, it just makes sense. It's real simple. I'm kind of a simple, hard asset kind of guy. And, have what you need, like you said, for a month, to live for a month. I try to lean more towards percentages. The reason why we're kind of talking like we've already talked like this before is because we did the video on the pier and the phone got too hot and it stopped.
Quit.
So we're doing it again. But if you'll try to think in percentages, it helped me so much. And the economic engineer spoke to me about this, and I started to do that on everything. And it really, really helps streamline stuff, because if you'll take, okay, I want this much in precious metals, that percentage, whether it's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever, that's your decision, your conviction. Do that. The problem is the action.
Yeah.
That's everybody's, and mine too. The problem is action. Take that action. Decide how much money you want outside of the banking system in just cash. Your nest egg you've got to run to if something does happen. They start restricting deposits, all this other stuff. You've got that. And then a percentage in the stock market, and then even a portion of that percentage that you put towards these speculative mining and resource companies that I talk about. Try to break it down in percentages and execute those percentages. We had a certain percentage allocated to real estate and rental properties. Well, when we start seeing the rental property market get, hot, and that's the only time you really know when to sell something is when it's expensive, right? So we took some of that risk off the table and paid off some rental properties, and now we're debt-free on rentals, and we've kind of got a better grip. We can sit back and kind of watch things come down, and now we're starting to see the real estate market come down. So, if you'll think in percentages, it will really stack the cards in your favor. But we're going to have to talk about getting out of debt before we talk about all that.
Yeah, that's my big thing is get out of debt first. My second big thing, probably not going to go too well on this channel, but it's tithing. There's a big secret power behind that helps you succeed in life. And that's all I'll say on that.
And not only tithing, but giving as well.
Yeah, tithing, giving, helping the poor, the widows, the orphans, the needy, along those lines. Building a community like TD was talking about. But yeah, kind of go along those lines. And then one of the other things Chris was talking about percentages, is that I always say, like, if you have, your percentages in your gold or whatever you're going to do, and get out of debt. But one of the other things I would like to add to that is that if my channel teaches about entrepreneurship and side hustles and everything, but if you have an idea in the Dow market and everything, this is the time to start a new business. If you want, if you have some money, you're like, well, what can I do with this money? If I take it out of the bank and I just have it sitting here, it's losing value every day. Well, if you want to start a business, if you have an entrepreneurial mindset, go for it. Give it all that you got, and it may take off. You never know. The only people that never know are the ones that never try.
Yeah.
So,
That's the true risk, is never trying. My first business attempt was a failure. My first business attempt was a welding truck, and that was pretty much straightforward. I already knew what to do there, but I learned so much in that failure. It started other businesses that are so much better off than the first one, but I would not be there if it wasn't for that learning experience. There is no failures. There's only learning experiences.
Yeah, that's right.
What are some other solutions about debt that we can kind of cover? I really hate to talk about credit card debt too much because I beat it over the head all the time.
just get out of debt.
It's just a trap. People feel like they don't have money after they pay it off, but as soon as you get that paid off, your cards are going to start stacking in your favor.
So I have one question. We talked about when it failed before the camera did. We were talking about the 401ks and the retirement pension plans and everything. And you were saying a large majority of people are in that. Well, if you take that out now, if you take the cash out now, well, I think it's a 15% penalty, right?
Maybe more than that.
Yeah, it'll be taxed as ordinary income, and then it'll be a 10% penalty in addition to taxed as ordinary income.
Okay, so then if you look at where it was, how much has it fallen since then? Would you have been ahead if you would take it out as it goes down? Because you're losing value in it every day in percentages.
Yeah, that's a great question. When it comes to tax deferred accounts, the reason I'm not a fan of a tax deferred account is because tax rate historically can only go up. Somebody has to pay for this thing eventually. Right. Eventually somebody's got to pay for something, which means that tax rates will only go up. So some future hope of some tax deferred carrot that may or may not be there.
Yeah, well, I guess what I'm asking is it feasible to go and take that out and put it into the percentage of hard assets or the list that he gave, percentages, versus watching your money deteriorate in a pension plan that's not going anywhere? Because that's what a large part of the audience and people out there, they're working the 30-some years so they can get to the pension plan and all that. And we're watching it just go like this. I mean, Ninja's talked about it a lot going down. I'm just wondering, I guess you have to do your own research to say, is it worth me taking this out now, paying the taxes and the penalty of what will I save, and then do something productive with that money that you take out, pay off debt, either that and or invest into some real assets.
We did that. My Stacey, when we got married in 2007, we started seeing the 2008 thing happening, and we sold. We got out of her 401k, and we rigged out my welding truck with the money, and that made millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So there's, that's a valid point you're making. I can't tell anybody to do that.
Well,
I'm pretty risk adverse.
I did it personally on myself in 2019. I had a big, from all my years, SEPs. I had a SEPs.
Yep, SEP. Yeah.
Built, and I cashed it out. And when I cashed it out, that SEPs in 2020 dropped like 60% in value.
Yeah.
So I was up by 45. Well, I didn't have to pay taxes because of all my business write-offs.
Yeah.
So I just had to pay the penalty fee of 15% or 5%, and I was way ahead.
Sure.
Then I turned around and took that money and went and bought some land.
Right. Yeah.
Buying land. Has anybody regretted buying land?
No one has ever regretted buying land. I have a great. He used to be my neighbor, and he still owns almost all the property around me, but he sold his house and the 55 acres next to me, and he said, every time I've sold land, I've regretted it. And he was like, you never sell your land. And this is part of the legacy, the way that we evaluate as a family and as a family economy, and this is the way we want to hold our wealth, is creating legacy. We continue to accumulate property. Not for us. I'm not. I have enough dirt. Me and my wife. We're in our mid 40s, but our children and our posterity, that the advantage that they have by having dirt, they already have dirt. Well, what do you want to do with it? And they can come up with different ideas. And there's so much value in real
What's
estate.
one of the things you're always saying on your channel? See what the rich and the elite are doing and copy them. Well, we always talk about they're buying gold and silver, but what Bill Gates doing? He's bought most of the land up here in Louisiana, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's the largest landowner in Louisiana.
I
which
mean,
makes me
Ted,
sick.
what's his name, used to be a CNN guy, Jane Fonda's ex-husband. Used to be the largest landowner, but now Bill Gates is the largest landowner in the nation.
And if you follow what the wealthy do, they don't tell you what to do, but they leave clues. They'll
Like buying up all the land.
And I made a video, and I hope you guys saw it. I did my best on it. The elite were selling. Elon Musk, Apple, and all the Facebook. It was like, what's going on? Why are all these guys selling? I had a big list of all the people who are selling. So I was actually beating on the anvil, saying, hey guys, they're selling right now. They have to sell early. They have to. They've got too much. You can't just sell it all at one time.
Yeah.
You can't go to the bank and get all your money at one time. It takes a long time if you're in that position to scale out. And ever since then, it went up just a little bit. Ever since then, it's been going down and down and down.
What they
The Facebook.
Oh.
Zuckerberg was selling
Yeah.
Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
Elon Musk selling Tesla.
They started in 18.
Did you see what Charlie Munger and
Warren Buffett.
Warren Buffett said this past week about the oil?
Yeah.
They're buying up all the oil stock in the Houston-based company, and everybody's like, I thought oil was bad, it's going away, but Warren's going in and buying up all like he did with all the railroads.
It's his fifth largest holding now.
He's the fifth largest holding.
That's his
in
number
his-
5 in his
Were you
portfolio.
talking about that?
Maybe, I'm not sure, but I did make a video about it.
Okay.
But Warren Buffett's leaving clues. That's actually in the video where he was shorting the Taiwan chip manufacturer.
Yes,
maybe.
I remember
He's
that.
also shorting his Taiwan chip manufacturing plant that makes 92% of the chips on the planet. This is also big news. So, you can kind of watch those guys because they know. They know way ahead of time.
Yeah.
Look at the Fed.
I mean, that's
the
why
Federal
I
Bank
watch,
knows.
That's why I watch oil on stock markets.
Sure.
I'm a
Oil's
big
going to be
supporter of that.
$100 a barrel is going to be a deal in the Thunderdome.
Yeah.
That's for sure. And natural gas is at a 25-year low too.
Yeah.
It's hitting it's got a pretty solid line all the way from 1998 where it hits $2 and then goes parabolic. So you might look into that. I've actually got a small list of companies I'm looking at. I don't plan on talking about any of them, promoting them or anything. But leave your number one picks in the oil and natural gas sector in the comment section.
I would make a recommendation. Any of Jim Cramer's hot picks, I would definitely sell all those. So there's some stock tips for you.
Yeah, anything Jim Cramer says, do the opposite. Yeah, exactly. So,
Isn't that the truth?
hey, one of the last, are you wanting to wrap it up?
Yeah, we can wrap it up.
So one of the last things we talked about out there for wrapping it up is we've talked a lot about prepping. That's probably why we're talking about prepping and getting ready for the future, our financial future and everything. That's probably why the prepping on YouTube has just blown up over the last couple of years, because people are starting to wake up and see what's going on around us and everything. But everybody's talking about physical prepping, materialistic prepping, financial prepping. But Shielded Prepper and I, Jesse, did a interview last week, and man, he hit the nail on the head of talking about it's important to do those things, but people, we need to start spiritually prepping.
I agree.
Prepping, spiritually prepping, and finding out, what's in here, and how you're relating with the good Lord Almighty. Because one of the things I think you brought up was about, or one of us did, is, with the CBDC that's coming up, are you going to take convenience over doing what's right, and that if you're getting into the big banks, you're abetting the enemy? What was that you said?
One recommendation I was making is if you're participating or you're banking with the big 6 banks, you should stop doing that, because you're technically part of the problem. You're aiding and abetting the enemy, And a very small change you can make in your financial picture is bank locally. You know, we tell all the
talked
people
about
time with
that.
their food, you know your farmer, buy your food locally. One, you're supporting your local infrastructure. We talk about all the time what parallel community, parallel economy. That's why we're sitting here right now is we're developing these friendships. And that's what all these online communities are for. And Chris has just got a killer online community, and you all interact and give each other great ideas and great information. And that's what this is all about. So one of those small changes you can make is don't bank with J.P. Morgan, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, or
Chase.
any of those top big six. You know, get your money out, get it local, get it into a local, not even a regional bank, get it into a local bank that's fiscally conservative.
Get to know your banker. Just
Yeah,
along the
exactly.
get
Yeah.
to know your farmer, which that's another whole topic that we could talk a lot about, but we won't. But the get to know your banker. I mean, I go in, I know my bankers and everything. Oh, speaking of my bank, I forgot to tell you guys, they're having a board meeting this month of actually taking the local bank to go and buy gold 5% to back their bank.
That's
great.
awesome.
I'm
That's
like,
awesome.
that's phenomenal.
Yeah, that's
so finding banks like that, and they're local banks.
And really, if you don't have the vice presidents of that bank in your phone book where you can call him, you should probably do that.
Yeah.
You really need to have him where you can get a hold of him. That type of relationship, you know, a first name basis type thing. And, you know, if you're like me, and most of you are, you can pretty much figure out where they sit, what they know, and what if they're lying to you or not. And just, you know, that's all good points. And you talked about being spiritually prepared. Guys, none of these problems would be here if we followed the Ten Commandments
Yeah.
and the Constitution,
You're right.
period. We would be sound, whole, everything would be hunky-dory. The American dream would be alive and well. We wouldn't have people working 2 and 3 jobs that couldn't even think about going to college. The American dream is dying. It's on its deathbed along with the dollar, because if you don't have sound currency, you don't have much. And if you don't have borders on your country, you don't have a country. We got 700,000 immigrants across the Texas border that are coming over in 2 days. 2 days.
Well, it's
Thursday.
It's not all Mexican.
No, yeah, that's the problem.
That's the
And
problem.
I got to touch on that. I said it in the video, but it's important for me to say it again.
Mexican.
I understand. I would be the same way. I would be hanging on the gate. They would have already deported me 5 times because I would provide for my family. I would do whatever it took.
Yeah.
So I can't blame them. But the fact is, we've got to, you know, it goes back to if we'd just followed the Bible.
Yeah.
You know, this UBI and the government taking care of everybody, this nanny state stuff,
Yeah.
that's not for the government. That's for the church. The church is supposed to take
Yeah, you're right.
care of the needy.
Yeah.
We're supposed to give to the church. The church takes care of the needy. Now that's all broken.
Yeah.
You know, and now we're relying on the evil government to do it, and that is not going to do anything but encourage more bad things. You know, they reward bad behavior constantly. They make the wrong decision every single time on every situation. It's incredible. It's just like Rome. I talk about Rome lately. The storm before the storm. Read the book.
Yep.
You know, you had all these sexual weird things going on in Rome when it was collapsing. They were arguing if the angels were male or female. They had immigrants coming over from different tribes. And here's the thing, here's one of the takeaways is some of the immigrants they rewarded with land and other things to make them allies and soldiers.
Yeah.
Now that's a scary thought.
Well, you're missing one of the key things. But they have Bud Light.
All right, guys, thanks for coming on, buddy. And I appreciate you being here today.
Yeah.
Thank
Chris.
you.
Appreciate
Good,
it.
sir.
It's always fun.
It always is. Guys, have an awesome, awesome day. We'll see you in the next one.
See y'all. Bye.
See ya.